On the night of March 8, 2014, the Kuala Lumpur Air Traffic Control Tower tracked a completely routine sequence of takeoffs and landings. Among them was Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. It was a standard commercial Boeing 777, carrying 227 passengers and 12 crew members, climbing smoothly toward its cruising altitude on a 6-hour red-eye to Beijing. At 1:19 a.m., the flight approached the edge of Malaysian airspace. The controller radioed instructions to contact air traffic control in Ho Chi Minh City. Captain Zahari Ahmed Shah replied, "Good night, Malaysian 370. That handover creates a tiny window of time where neither country is actively tracking the plane. Malaysia assumes Vietnam has taken over, and Vietnam is waiting for the pilots to check in. Going silent exactly within this geographic seam requires knowing precisely when no one is looking. It removes the possibility of an accident and points to a calculated act." 2 minutes after that final radio call, the plane's transponder was manually shut down from inside the cockpit. This instantly erased the aircraft's altitude, speed, and identification data from civilian radar screens. This schematic illustrates the 777's electrical grid, specifically 5 distinct power sources connected to the secondary tracking system, known as ACARS. With 4 main generators and 1 auxiliary power unit, these redundant sources had to be systematically bypassed and shut down. Executing this maneuver in the dark, mid-flight, requires a deep understanding of Boeing's internal architecture. Whoever erased this plane from the sky was an aviation expert. But the erasure wasn't flawless. A separate system called the Satellite Data Unit was left running. Once an hour, it sent a brief, automated electronic ping, a handshake, to an orbiting satellite. This visualization shows burst frequency offset data. Like the Doppler effect, the signal's frequency shifted based on speed and direction. Combining these pings with Doppler distortion, investigators proved the plane turned south, flying 7 hours to terminate in the southern Indian Ocean's 7th arc. The digital footprint was mathematically concrete, yet it pointed search teams to a massive grid of empty water, yielding 0 physical debris. Early in the investigation, attention fell on the passenger manifest. 2 men boarded using stolen passports, immediately raising the prospect of a terrorist hijacking. Forensic checks quickly ruled them out. They were Iranian asylum seekers trying to reach Europe. Furthermore, no terror organization ever claimed responsibility for the flight. Another theory suggested a catastrophic loss of cabin pressure. If the crew suffered hypoxia and fell unconscious, the plane could have flown on autopilot as a ghost flight until running out of fuel. However, an unconscious crew cannot pull complex circuit breakers to isolate and disable the ACAR system. Furthermore, military radar captured the aircraft executing an aggressive left turn back toward the Malay Peninsula. An autopilot does not execute evasive manual banking maneuvers. The technical precision of the electrical shutdown and the aggressive flight path point entirely to conscious, deliberate control inside the cockpit. That leaves the man who knew the plane best, Captain Zahari himself. Investigators recovered deleted data from a flight simulator in his home. He had practiced a route tracing an almost identical path down into the deepest, most isolated parts of the southern Indian Ocean. But without the cockpit voice recorder or the physical wreckage of the plane, the simulator data remains entirely circumstantial. It is a profile, not a conviction. Driven by this digital lead, an international coalition spent $107 million scouring 120,000 square kilometers of the ocean floor. Even when private marine survey firms like Ocean Infinity deployed fleets of autonomous underwater vehicles, they came up empty. They have a primary suspect, a corroborated flight path, and the most heavily funded search operation in aviation history, yet they remain at a complete standstill. Recently, the investigation has turned to a new forensic tool, WSPR, or Weak Signal Propagation Reporter. WSPR is a global radio network. When an airliner flies through these paths, it leaves a weak in the data. Analyzing archived radio data allowed engineers to track the 777's final movements. It executed deliberate maneuvers, entering a figure-8 holding pattern before descending. This highly specific tracking data has prompted Ocean Infinity to negotiate a new search contract, targeting coordinates well outside the original zones. We can trace radio distortions and satellite handshakes to a specific coordinate, but reading digital echoes is a very different task than recovering the physical machine. Beyond the engineering data and the radar logs, there are 239 people who boarded a standard commercial flight and never arrived. For their families, the last 12 years have been an agonizing state of suspension. Without physical evidence, there is no closure. There are no funerals to hold. There is only endless water and the unending torture of not knowing. Until the ocean gives up the wreckage, MH370 remains an open wound, demanding that the search for answers continues.